Welcome, it's Neil Dugan here. We're just in the end part of looking at the physical brains of the body, so the 5 physical brains, and obviously this series of videos is supporting the coherence work that we're doing and also the conversations books that we're creating. So look, thanks for watching, and what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about the spinal brain. So we've had a look at the head brain, we've had a look at the thoracic brain, we've had a look at the abdominal brain, had a look at the pelvic brain, and now we're having a look at the spinal brain. Now, as I've mentioned before, probably a couple of times, from a Western medical perspective, the central nervous system includes the head, brain, and all of the spinal column. In some perspectives, it actually goes outside of the spinal column as well, so some of the distribution networks are considered to be part of the central nervous system. However, from the perspective of the work that we're doing, which is all practically based, so how I come to actually do all these things and work with them all is that they work. Stuff actually works and it makes sense and is practical from a therapy perspective. So I'm not totally locked into the way that we're actually describing these things as being rock solid and right and so on. I'm just saying that this stuff is useful. It's a useful way of looking at things. So with the physical brain of the spine, the functioning of it is actually centered right at the very bottom of the spine. So it goes from the coccyx, which is your tailbone, up through the sacrum, which is the large bone that the pelvis is all joined to, and then up through the spinal column all the way up into the skull. And the actual spinal brain includes structures up inside the skull as well. So the brainstem is an important part of it, but several structures that are associated with the brainstem right at the very top of the spinal column as well. So these are structures that are well inside the skull. Interestingly enough, when I was actually developing version 2 of the Coherence device, and I was attempting to actually entrain or to relax the functioning or the cycling of the whole of the spinal brain, it was necessary to actually have some of these stimulation lights, the infrared LEDs, actually right up in the back of the head. So we're actually stimulating right into the the sort of brainstem area, as well as down the spine all the way down to the coccyx obviously as well. And this is for the physical brain, but also to encourage the interactions that we want to encourage for the mind level. So we've got all these mind levels of the spinal brain. There's 10 of them plus other bits and pieces as well, and all the different frequencies. And so we're wanting to actually be able to capture all of that activity. So from this is not a particularly Western medical science view of it, this is more from the view of my observations, is that the center of this activity is actually in the sacrum. It's right at the very bottom of the spine, so sacrum and the coccyx, but particularly in the sacrum. And when we have a look anatomically at it, we actually do scans on this part of the body, we find not only the nervous system, the transmission nervous system, which is going out to all of the organs and to the musculature and the management of just about everything that you can think of that the nervous system has a control over. So that's the normal stuff that we think about. But in addition to that, there is all these thinking cells, these neurological structures, and it's massive. It's absolutely massive. Inside the spinal column, around the spinal column, and particularly dense down around the area of the sacrum. So it's an area of real density of the sort of neurological structures. From the perspective of how we would approach this in therapy, or what it would come up or how it would be, is that pretty much anything to do with movement within the system. So musculoskeletal stuff is the stuff that immediately comes to people's minds, but also things like the control of the movement of the digestive processes in the body, the movement of circulation, so anything to do with circulation, whether that be cerebrospinal circulation for that matter, or lymphatic or the blood supply, all of it, and any of that movement is a very, very strong interaction with the thinking processes that are associated with the spinal brain. And we see that there's actually neurological functioning associated with that. Unlike the earlier brains that we're looking at, which had such strong connections to endocrine structures, the immediate endocrine structure connections for the spinal brain are not quite so obvious unless you actually get up into the neck. So in and around the neck there's a lot of endocrine structures which have a direct relationship to the activity of this head brain. I'm sorry, I'm waving my hands around. There's mosquitoes here. It's the time of the year when we have mosquitoes. Basically all year we have mosquitoes actually, but anyway, they're certainly busy at the moment. So what was I saying? Yeah, so these actual, the endocrine structures, particularly in the neck, are very, very closely associated with the functioning of the spinal brain. So, once again, we actually see this interrelationship between the neurology, the actual control over the body, so in other words, the distribution of information, and also the actual thinking processes that go with it. So there's a big interrelationship with all of these things. So there's probably a lot more that I could say, but these mosquitoes are driving me crazy, so we'll leave it here where we are. And please like or share, and I look forward to seeing you on the next part of the series. So that's the end of the physical brains, and we're going to have a look at the actual minds, so the 5 major minds. After that we're going to have a look at the yin and yang aspects of it, so that you can see how we end up with 10 plus minds being associated with each of these physical brains, and how it all works, in therapy. So yeah, look out for the next videos, like and share. Thank you very much. Catch you then. Bye bye.